He mocked me after I paid his $15,000 legal bills, so I canceled his lawyer. The first thing my older brother, Leo, said when he raised his frosted glass of craft beer at his own acquittal party was, "You have to know how to play the game, and some people, like my little brother here, are just too scared to ever roll the dice." He projected his voice over the upbeat country music playing from the patio speakers, ensuring that every relative, neighbor, and family friend gathered in our parents' suburban backyard heard him perfectly. A few people chuckled. My mother, flipping burgers at the grill, beamed at him with the kind of unfiltered adoration she reserved exclusively for her eldest son. "Leo is a survivor," she announced to a group of aunts. "He doesn't let the system push him around." I sat at the edge of the patio, staring at the condensation dripping down my glass of ice water. I had spent $15,000 3 months ago to keep Leo from becoming a convicted criminal, and yet, not a single person standing on that manicured lawn knew the truth. I had drained my savings to protect his career, his reputation, and my parents' hearts, because I wanted to believe that hitting rock bottom would finally change him. Instead, Leo believed my silence was just another form of submission. He leaned against the railing of the wooden deck, wearing the arrogant, untouchable smirk he always wore when he was rewriting history to make himself the hero. To understand the sheer audacity of that moment, you have to understand the phone call I received at 2:43 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday 3 months prior. I was asleep in my apartment when my phone vibrated. It was a collect call from the county jail. When I accepted the charges, I heard a sound I had never heard before. Leo, the golden boy of the family, the top-tier commercial real estate broker, weeping uncontrollably. He had been pulled over after a client dinner. He had blown a 0.14 on the breathalyzer, nearly double the legal limit. Worse, he had sideswiped a parked luxury car before the police pulled him over. "David, you have to help me," he sobbed into the receiver, his voice thick with panic and alcohol. "If I get a DUI, my firm will fire me. I'll lose my broker's license. My career is completely over. Please do not tell Mom and Dad. It will kill them." For my entire life, I had been the family's designated safety net. When I was in high school, I stayed up late typing Leo's history papers so he wouldn't fail out of the lacrosse team. When he maxed out his first credit card in college, I gave him my summer landscaping earnings so our father wouldn't take away his car. I was the quiet, predictable accountant. I was dependable, which in our family's language translated to invisible. Leo was the charismatic risk-taker, the one who brought energy into a room, the one who was constantly rewarded for his charm while I was expected to manage the collateral damage of his mistakes. That night, I did what I was conditioned to do. I drove to the county lockup in the pouring rain. I paid his bail. The next morning, I took a personal day from work and sat with him in the mahogany-paneled office of Robert Harrison, the most ruthless and expensive defense attorney in the state. Mr. Harrison looked at the police report and quoted a flat retainer fee of $15,000 for the criminal defense, plus an additional $10,000 if the owner of the parked car decided to pursue a civil lawsuit for damages. Leo looked at me with hollow, desperate eyes. He swore he would go to Alcoholics Anonymous. He swore he would pay me back every single cent. He swore this was his wake-up call. So, I authorized a wire transfer of $15,000 from my high-yield savings account, effectively wiping out the down payment I had been saving for my own house. I agreed to cover the civil retainer when the time came. For the next 3 months, the family lived a lie. Leo told our parents that a rogue, quota-hungry police officer had given him a bogus traffic ticket for a broken taillight and tried to escalate it illegally. My parents, who possessed a terrifying capacity for denial, swallowed the story whole. They praised Leo for hiring a lawyer to fight corruption. Whenever I tried to gently suggest to my mother that Leo might have a drinking problem, she shut me down instantly, calling me jealous and unsupportive. Meanwhile, Robert Harrison earned his exorbitant fee. He subpoenaed the dashcam footage from the arresting officer's cruiser and found a procedural miracle. The officer had failed to observe Leo for the mandatory 15 minutes before administering the breathalyzer, a strict requirement to ensure mouth alcohol doesn't skew the results. Because of that technicality, the judge threw out the breathalyzer evidence. Without it, the prosecution's case crumbled. The DUI charge was reduced to a minor reckless driving infraction. Leo paid a small fine, kept his driver's license, and saved his lucrative career. He had escaped the criminal justice system, but he was still facing the civil lawsuit from the owner of the parked car. The plaintiff was seeking substantial damages. Just 2 days before the backyard party, I had signed a secondary agreement with Mr. Harrison's firm, promising to wire the $10,000 civil retainer on the following Monday morning to initiate Leo's defense. Which brings us back to the party. It was supposed to be a quiet family barbecue, but Leo had turned it into a victory parade. And what made my blood run cold wasn't just that he was drinking again, a clear violation of the desperate promises he made in the lawyer's office, but that he was actively weaponizing his survival against me. You see, David's problem is that he lives his life in a spreadsheet, Leo announced, pointing his beer bottle at me. A few of his finance bros nodded in agreement. He's terrified of stepping out of line, but the real world doesn't reward good boys who keep their heads down. It rewards people with the guts to push the limits and fight back when they get cornered. You gotta have a little edge, right? My father chuckled from his lawn chair. Your brother is just cautious, Leo. Leave him be. We can't all be high rollers. The casual dismissal in my father's voice felt like a physical blow. I looked at Leo, glowing with unearned confidence, drinking a beer he promised he would never touch again, mocking the very person who had purchased his freedom. I realized in that exact moment that I hadn't saved my brother. I had enabled a monster. By shielding him from the consequences of his actions, I had validated his belief that he was above the law and above me. I had hoped my generosity would inspire humility, but it had only bred a deeper, more vicious arrogance. I set my water glass down on the patio table. The clink of the glass was soft, but in my mind, it sounded like a gavel dropping. I didn't yell. I didn't flip the table. I simply stood up, slid the glass door open, and walked into the quiet, air-conditioned sanctuary of my parents' house. I walked down the hallway to my father's study, closed the heavy oak door, and locked it. I pulled my phone from my pocket and dialed the weekend emergency number for Robert Harrison's law firm. The answering service patched me through to Mr. Harrison within 2 minutes. He sounded annoyed to be bothered on a Saturday, but his tone shifted to sharp professionalism when I identified myself. Mr. Vance, is there an emergency with your brother? No emergency, Mr. Harrison, I said, my voice shockingly steady. I am calling to officially revoke my financial authorization for Leo's upcoming civil trial. Cancel the $10,000 wire transfer scheduled for Monday. I will not be funding his defense. There was a brief silence on the line. David, you need to understand the implications of this, the lawyer said carefully. The plaintiff's counsel is aggressive. If Leo does not secure representation immediately, they will file for a default judgment. They will go after his wages, his assets, and his bank accounts. He could lose everything. I understand completely, I replied. Leo is a survivor. He has plenty of edge. I'm sure he will figure it out. Please inform him on Monday that his account with you is closed. As you wish, Mr. Harrison said, and I could almost hear the professional detachment snapping into place. I hung up the phone. For the first time in 28 years, the crushing weight of responsibility lifted off my shoulders. I felt incredibly light. I walked back down the hallway, pushed open the glass door, and stepped back out onto the patio. The music was still playing. Leo was in the middle of telling a highly exaggerated story about how he had intimidated the prosecutor in the hallway of the courthouse. My mother was laughing, handing him a fresh plate of barbecue. I walked directly up to Leo. The smile on his face faltered slightly when he saw the expression in my eyes. The group of friends around him fell quiet, sensing the sudden, drastic shift in the atmospheric pressure. You're right, Leo, I said. My voice was calm, but it carried effortlessly over the music. He blinked. Right about what, Davy? I have always played it safe. I have always been the good boy, but you taught me a valuable lesson today about pushing limits. I looked at my parents, who were now staring at me with bewildered expressions. Since you are so bold, and so capable of fighting your own battles, you won't mind handling the civil lawsuit yourself. Leo's face froze. The arrogant smirk vanished, replaced by a twitch of pure, unadulterated panic. What are you talking about? He whispered, glancing nervously at his friends. I just got off the phone with Robert Harrison, I said. I made sure to enunciate the lawyer's name clearly. I canceled the $10,000 retainer for your civil defense on Monday. The color drained from Leo's face so fast he looked physically ill. David, you can't do that, he hissed, stepping toward me, his voice dropping to a desperate, frantic whisper. We had a deal. I don't have that kind of liquid cash right now. They'll garnish my wages. My firm will find out. Wait, my father interrupted, standing up from his lawn chair. Who is Robert Harrison? What civil lawsuit? Leo, you said this was a traffic ticket. I turned to my father. Leo didn't get a traffic ticket, Dad. He got arrested for a DUI. He blew a 0.14. He crashed his car into a parked Tesla. He was facing jail time and the loss of his license. My mother dropped her spatula. It hit the wooden deck with a loud clatter. David, that's not funny. Why would you make up such a horrible lie about your brother? Ask him, I said, gesturing to Leo. Every eye in the backyard turned to the golden child. Leo opened his mouth, but no words came out. His hands were shaking. He looked at his friends, then at our parents, the reality of his shattered illusion crashing down on him all at once. I paid $15,000 of my own savings to keep him out of jail, I continued, the truth pouring out of me like water from a broken dam. I did it because he begged me, because he cried in a jail cell and promised he would change. I agreed to pay another $10,000 on Monday to save him from the civil suit. And I walked out here today to find him drinking a beer and calling me a coward for cleaning up his mess. David, please, Leo begged. All his swagger completely evaporated. We can talk about this inside. I'll pay you back. Just call the lawyer back. Please. No, I said. The word hung in the air, absolute and undeniable. You wanted everyone to think you won because you're tough? I told him, looking him dead in the eye. You wanted them to think I'm weak because I'm quiet. But the only reason you have a job, a car, and a life right now is because I bought them for you. My days of being your safety net are over. You wanted the real world, Leo? Welcome to it. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't wait for my mother's tears or my father's inevitable attempts to mediate. I turned around, walked through the side gate of the fence, and got into my car. My phone started blowing up before I even hit the highway. My father called 4 times. My mother left a weeping voicemail begging me to come back and act like a family. Leo sent a barrage of text messages, swinging wildly from furious threats to pathetic, groveling apologies. I didn't answer any of them. I drove back to my apartment in silence, watching the sunset in my rearview mirror. The fallout was catastrophic, but for the first time in my life, it wasn't my catastrophe to manage. Without my funding, Mr. Harrison formally withdrew as Leo's counsel on Monday. Forced to hire a cheap, state-appointed civil attorney, Leo was completely outmatched by the plaintiff's lawyers. They secured a massive judgment against him. His firm found out about the impending wage garnishment and the underlying DUI details that emerged during the civil discovery phase. Because his job required a spotless ethical record to manage client funds, they terminated him immediately. He lost his apartment. He had to move back into my parents' guest room, a 30-year-old man stripped of his arrogance, forced to finally face the consequences of his own reflection. My parents tried to pressure me into loaning him money to get back on his feet, but I refused. I told them that if they wanted to coddle a grown man, they could finance it themselves. I haven't spoken to Leo in over a year. Some of my extended family members whispered that I was cruel, that I had destroyed my brother's life over a bruised ego at a party. But they are wrong. I didn't destroy his life. I merely stopped paying for the illusion that he was a good man. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for a toxic person is to let them hit the ground. And the most respectful thing you can do for yourself is to stop being their parachute. So, tell me honestly, if you sacrificed your own future to save a family member, and they used their second chance to humiliate you in front of the world, would you have made the same phone call I did? Or would you have kept paying for the privilege of being abused?